Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday Show. It's really good to have you here. I'm Neil Long and it's great to be here. We've got a fantastic guest. We'll just do some chit-chats and say some hellos, and then we get our guest on. It's called James Fink, and I'm looking forward to chatting to him because I think what he is doing for mental health is absolutely brilliant. In fact, I saw him in his capacity. And it's really good when you see people kind of in their capacities. You kind of get a sense, that's really natural thing for you to do. It could be anything. And in what I saw him doing, it was just a natural fit for some reason. I really like seeing things like that. And there's obviously a lot of thought gone into it as well. And it's doing a lot of good in the world. So we'll just do a couple of hellos. Any comments, any hellos, any heckles? Anyone want to criticize my glasses or my dress sense or my hair? I mean, chuck it all in. I'm still recovering from International Women's Day. 91 wonderful women I tagged in with a beautiful message to the fairer sex, and then spent the next 2 days apologising to the 4 that I accidentally forgot. Sometimes you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. And I love women, but my God, they don't forget it. Moving swiftly on. I think we'll get our guest on in a minute. We'll just say some hellos. Robert Van Buren, hello Neil, hello RVB. Good day, says Facebook user. I don't know who you are. With this migration to the Midday Show, sometimes your names don't come up. So if you want to tell me who you are, I'll gladly give you a shout out, or you can just lurk and watch anonymously. I don't mind too much. And Barry J. Allen, hello to you. Afternoon, Neil, in all. Lovely to have you all here. Let's get our guest on. Ladies and gentlemen, go wild, go crazy. It is James Fink. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, really, really good. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much, James, for being on.
No problem. Really good to be here.
So the backstory is I was at a charity quiz night with my friend and co-presenter and radio girl, Emily Kate Owen. And it was in the school at Mosper Park, and it was for parents in need. And I can't remember the name of the school for love nor money. Can you?
No, to be honest, I can't. But it was a great evening. We really enjoyed catering.
It was. It's the school right by the station at Mosper Park. And I noticed that you had a food stand set up outside, a food stall. And I came a little closer and I read it. It said Fink, Conscious Street Food. And it was all about mental health. And I grabbed one of your cards, which I have here. It was social enterprise, street food, and events catering, smashing mental health stigma one bite at a time. And at that point, my dander went up. My spidey senses were stimulated, and I thought, I've got to learn more about this. So I came over and said hi, and took a card and said, "Do you want to be on?" And he said yes, and here we are. Yeah. So let's hear all about it, because I'm an advocate for mental health. I've been clear on this show since I've been presenting it. A couple of times in my life I've struggled, and I've come through. But what's your story? How come the mental health involvement, and why food? And just tell me all about it.
So I'll give you the brief potted history of Fink Street Food. I started the business with my colleague Lewis Greenwood, who's my fellow director.
And by the way, it was delicious. I just need to say.
There you go. That's good. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely authentic and delicious. I would really recommend it, but I'm going to shut up now. You're foreign.
No, product is key. That's the thing. So we're the first social enterprise food truck in the UK, and social enterprise businesses essentially businesses with a social mission. So we're trying to achieve sort of the dual aim of being a successful, profitable business, but also committing that we use 50% of our profits to support mental health initiatives and projects. So for us, that takes various different forms, whether it's using the food truck as a platform to tackle and raise mental health awareness through our educational messaging. But most importantly, from that event, we have reinvested 50% of the profit to fund mental health counselling services for young people. We're partnered with a charity called Number 5 Young People based in Reading, who are providing free counselling services for kids who are really, really facing excruciatingly long wait times to see a mental health professional.
I remember a while ago, a friend of mine, it doesn't exist anymore because she's gone on to do lots of great work in the field of eating disorders, actually. She has a podcast called Bulimia Sucks, and she's written a book. But one of her previous projects, a lady called Kate, started a mental health charity, and it was all done in a shed in her back garden. They converted the shed into a therapy room, and I just studied a bit of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, so I went and did some volunteer work there. But you're right, the waiting times, and this is one of the reasons why she set up the charity. I mean, it can be up to 18 months. And if you've got an acute mental disorder, which a lot of them are, that's a hell of a long time.
Exactly. Yeah, we
I mean,
meet so
6
many
weeks.
parents
6 weeks
young
is a long
people.
time.
Oh, I've
So
lost you. Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah, we meet so many parents, and we have lots of conversations on the truck itself, where young people come and see us and say they've been trying to get an appointment for months, and I think the average wait time is something like 21 weeks or something now, which is just crazy. But yeah, we're trying to use food as a sort of platform to challenge negative perceptions of mental health, to show everyone that they're not alone in dealing with it, and that we all deal with it in different ways. And food is an amazing platform, and as it brings people together, and it's a sort of soft way that we can get these positive messages across, because often
I
a lot
think
of
it's
mental health.
brilliant. It's a beautiful thing, really, and it opens up the conversation really well. And you're right, food being social and communal is it's like breaking bread with someone, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You can bond with food, can't you? It's been
Yeah,
used for
yeah,
rituals and bonding over the years, and this is a modern day iteration, but it's not new.
absolutely.
It's,
Often when
it's come.
you're dealing with mental health problems, you feel like you're the only one in the world who's suffering from it.
That was going to be the next words out of my mouth. I've said that
Yeah,
so
yeah,
many times on this show while we discuss mental health, because we discuss it openly on this show, and you feel like you are the only one. And it's made worse, I think, by Facebook and things like that, because if you look at Facebook or the socials, you get the impression that everyone's having a great time in the world
absolutely.
apart
Yeah,
from you. Yeah, and
yeah,
what was meant to connect us can make us even more isolated. But let's get that message out loud and clear. If you're suffering from anything mental health related, trust me, you are not.
yeah,
Trust
yeah,
me. Trust me,
absolutely.
you are not the only one. But it does feel that way. So that first stage where you can actually just, I guess, take the mask off and have an open conversation in a safe space with a soft
Exactly.
way of approaching it like food. I think
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
wonderful,
We've
wonderful.
recently introduced other initiatives around mental well-being as well, looking at how we can support very young children in primary school in learning about healthy eating and their links between what you eat, how you feel, and mental
Hugely.
well-being and overall well-being, and also just using cooking and cooking classes and having fun in the kitchen as a way to build confidence, build linguistic skills with their peers, raise
Mm.
self-esteem, and also just learning a new skill, which is and two of that raising self-esteem and learning new skills are two of the NHS's key tips for improving
How
our
did
mental
this
well-being.
How did this idea come about? Because you're ticking so many boxes. One would have thought that you've been in the mental health game for years, but you don't look old enough to have been.
No, no, and at the end of the day,
Have you
we
been in
aren't
before?
we aren't mental health professionals. We're caterers at the end of the day, but
Yeah.
we created a business that has partnered with mental health professionals to be able to have a real impact. And my mum suffers from quite severe bipolar disorder, which
Ah,
growing up really channeled my view on the lack of support for people suffering from mental ill health. And both Lewis and I have worked in the catering industry since we were 17. And seen lots and lots of different colleagues and peers suffering from mental ill health, unfortunately taking their own lives, for example. And I think every aspect of our lives now is you come into contact with poor mental health in some way, and you sort of see the impacts it has on people's everyday life. So we
well, it
got
does, even
inspired.
for the people that care for these people. I mean, because it ripple out into the family. I mean, there's a phrase that carers need care too, but there seems very little support, really. I mean, massive waiting lists, and then and what about the people who are living and interacting with these people as well, like
Yeah,
yourself and your mum? Where was the support for you on how to deal with someone that suffers from bipolar or another disorder? It's just not there. So I'm just
yeah,
so
yeah.
glad the
And I think
conversation is opening up, and it seems to be happening more and more in kind of grassroots ways like this, rather than any kind of governmental
absolutely, yeah. And
intervention.
unfortunately, that it's got to the stage now where the sort of mental health crisis is so severe that it's about more than just raising awareness. As you know, there needs to be support there available for people who feel like when they are ready to speak up, which takes a lot of guts and a lot of courage when you're suffering from mental ill health, but to then be faced with a excruciatingly long waiting list, especially for a young person who's probably really, really suffering by the point that they've
Mm.
plucked up the courage to speak to their parents, to go to their GP, to then be faced with a sort of brick wall of waiting time is must be really excruciating. So that's one little way that we're trying to fill the gap, and it's only thanks to our customers and who come and buy food from the food truck, or our clients who book us for private events, that we're able to reinvest the portion of our profits to fund those.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic work that you're doing. So congratulations. So with the conversations that you have when people, because sometimes they're the best ones of the lot, when it's kind of unofficial, someone will just sort of maybe sidle up and say, do you know what? Me too. You know, and just even in that, someone doesn't feel quite so alone, because we've established it feels very isolating. What kind of things do you end up talking about the most?
I think it is just, I think that is the key message, that that no one is alone. There's always someone to speak to, and it's totally normal as well. People often feel ashamed of their mental health, poor mental health, but there's a huge stigma around it that shouldn't be there, because we all experience it. But I think the one that stuck with me recently was in one of our primary school cooking classes with a young person who had an eating disorder, and had no confidence to try new foods, and was just totally sort of her walls were up against new food ingredients and things like that, naturally, because of her eating disorder. But by the end of the session, she had really enjoyed it and tried all the food, tried 3 or 4 ingredients that were totally new to her. And her parents dropped us a message afterwards to say that it was a sort of really revolutionary day for them in terms of her relationship with food, which was great. And that was just through the act of cooking with each other, cooking with her friends, and
I've never
understanding more about
heard of a
eating.
treatment like that. I don't know much about the treatment, but I imagine if you go for treatment for an eating disorder, I've never heard of that, where you would actually try foods and cook with foods and do something collaborative, because it ticks that box for peer support, I suppose, is the word I want more than anything else. Because that age group in teenagers, I assume this person was a teenager.
No, it was year 6 primary school pupil,
even younger.
Yeah,
But again, peer support, friendship, that kind of thing, anything connected with a group of people,
absolutely, yeah,
is a really healthy thing to do. It's like you're hitting on an awful lot of psychological wisdom, whether you realize it or not, and you probably do, and I hope you do. But it really is, and it does strike me that there is still this stigma. It does take courage to pluck up and talk about it, because I think we've got I had a guest on, Mike Nicholson, who does a lot of good work. He does something, he's a former school teacher, and he's kind of gone out on his own doing seminars on what's called progressive masculinity. And it's really good. It sort of redefines what it is to be a guy nowadays, that, having the kind of conversations we're having now is desirable, is a good thing, and it doesn't make you any less of a man. Quite the opposite. And there's some really ridiculous crap that goes around masquerading as psychological wisdom, that men should be like this, or men should be like that, or you should be po-faced. And maybe it's a British thing as well, I don't know. And never show your emotions too much, but all that does is kind of shove them down, where they will come out in really unhealthy ways in the future. And a massive generalization: men tend to act out more physically, women tend to turn it inwards more. That's a generalization. There are exceptions, but neither of which is healthy at all.
Yeah. I think I've seen some really good campaigns out there recently, particularly in the sports industry. Loose Heads, for example, is a rugby charity looking at supporting mental health in the rugby sphere, which is great, and encouraging men to open up. So I think, as you say, attitudes are changing, but attitudes need to change, but also the support needs to increase, and that's down to our government, really, because it can't always be on the charities to be able to fill the gap.
Charities can't sustain that, and I think the government sometimes, I just get the impression they kind of throw money at it because it seems like a good thing to do, but it needs more than that. It needs whole new structure set up so people don't feel so isolated in the first place, because isolation
rather than cure is definitely the way forward. And it comes down to everything in our society, really. Our relationship with exercise, with how do we stop our older people becoming lonely, and how do we care for each other in a more caring way, and how do we learn about our nutrition and how that impacts our overall well-being. So it's incredibly complicated, but I think you're right.
And isn't it curious that looking back to, I don't know what school was like when you were there, but I'm going back to the late 70s, early 80s, because I'm that old, but we were taught none of this.
No, same here. I went to school in the 90s, and it was just not on the radar.
it wasn't on the radar. Our sex ed was one lesson in biology with one book, with one chapter
Yeah.
on it, which was just a picture of the bits and their biological functions. It was hilarious. I'll never forget this story because it was just one chapter in a book, and there were 31 books handed out, and they all opened at the same page simultaneously. obviously the most read page, and it was quite a comedy moment. But there was nothing, to use that example, on relationships, on consent, on pleasure, on communication, on boundaries. There was none of that. Nothing on mental health at all. It was all at my school. It was all academia. It was molding us into little gentlemen. It was quite a so-called posh school, so-called, making us little gentlemen and academic achievement. And some schools were like that, except it was all about sport. If you were good at sport, the headmaster liked you, and if you weren't really ticking his boxes. And this really does need to change. It really does need to change. So, what would you like to see society-wide? If I could give you a magic wand right now, and we could conjure up these wonderful structures that would allow and facilitate the well-being that we all seek, what do you think?
I think more care for people in acute mental health crisis is needed. It's totally wrong that people who are going through acute mental health crisis are often ending up in prison cells overnight instead of a mental health bed, which is, that's good for no one. If you're in crisis, you need to be.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah,
it's absolutely terrifying. I'll be absolutely honest. There's no point in it. I when I was in my 20s, late teens, early 20s, I'd struggled, and I was spent 3 weeks in a psych ward, and it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrible. It's like being dragged away and put in an alien environment where you feel unwell and you're around other unwell people. It seems quite primitive, really, but I don't know what else could have been done given the structures at the time. And the staff there were very good, but it was just still a scary experience. It's a comment from Dr. Asa Don Brown. He's a regular of this show, so meet Dr. Asa. He's very high up in the American and Canadian psychiatric community, so he's a real pro. And he says, I wholeheartedly agree. Those who offer mental health services are vicariously affected. It's common for health practitioners to avoid care. This is talking about carers need care too. It's all about the stigmatization and the personal perception associated with being in therapy as a practitioner. But I'd want to say to anyone listening to this, there is no embarrassment and no shame whatsoever in having an awareness and a desire to nurture your and other people's mental health. How could that be? What kind of screwed up society do we live in where people point at that and call it wrong?
I think it's really good to see more celebrities and people in the cultural sphere speaking up about their therapy. I'm an avid listener of The Rest is Politics with Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart, and Alistair's always vindicating how therapy has helped him change his life around. It's really good. I think it's an important step to see people in the cultural sphere speaking up and
all the good books I've read, all the ones that are autobiographical, the kind. They've had their initiations, if you like, or challenges. They've turned their so-called healing corner, and then they've written books, or they go out and they do seminars or talks, or they have a body of work, or do something like you are, something like that. But they're always people that have had some kind of experience with it one way or another, and then have found ways to manage to overcome, and then think, well, I can actually help a lot of other people with this. And they're the best of the lot, I find, rather than someone that's got all the qualifications, but kind of you get the impression they're sitting there with the white coat and haven't really had the experience of it. And that's not against our professionals and our doctors, but even I had a wonderful therapist, and she told me as part of the training she had therapy herself. And I'll be first to say that therapy was, at the time of my life about 4 years ago, Christ, I don't know what I'd have done without it. And it has helped me.
I think that's one of the challenges that's when my mother.
I'll say that as a guy, and I don't feel any less mad.
I think that's one of the challenges when my mum was ill. The experiences of being treated very, it's about the medicine and the pills rather than the therapy and the and the communication and things that was what she really needed. So the improvements on both sides and how access to therapy through the NHS and things,
Well,
I think needs to
I
improve.
think when it comes to the drug side of it and the pills, it's just my opinion. By all means, feel free to disagree. I think that they shouldn't be any more than jump leads. If your car battery is flat, you put the jump leads on, get the power in it, and then you don't need them anymore. But to be on pills for years and years and years and years, it seems they're constantly treating the symptom without addressing the cause.
Yeah, it's an incredibly complicated
It is.
minefield of and I trust the mental health professionals on that front, but I wish there was just more of the CBT therapy, that sort of thing, available to people, which is probably what she really needed more than the drugs at that time. So, but hey ho, unfortunately we're in the situation with the NHS that we're in, rightly or wrongly, and it's not the fault of the people who are working incredibly hard in that sector, because we all know that they're doing their very, very best with what they're given.
I know. A friend of mine's recently had it, not for a mental reason, but for a physical reason. One of the people close to her is in hospital, and the scenes she's describing, you'd think it was the third world country, but it is nothing to do with the people that work there. Nothing to do with the people that work there at all. And you're right, there does have to be change. The one that really came home to me was Caroline Flack. You remember that? When she was arrested, and that tipped her over the edge, and she's obviously hit a crisis in her life, and I'm not saying this to criticize the police. Again, I think they do a very difficult job, and I know personally many police officers, and they're good-hearted people, and they do their job well, and they're not monsters. Do you know what I mean? The vast majority, they're just normal people like you and me. But again, if that's the best treatment we've got, just being kind of shoved in a police cell and then have the whole world turn its spotlight on you and go, look at her. At a time when that's the last thing that she needed, I'm not surprised she did what she did, and it's tragic.
Yeah, and some of the hate and vitriol you see on social media and the way we treat each other online and social media, I think is a massive cause of, especially for young people who are, I don't think, back in when we went to school, bullying probably only happened in the classroom, because you could, when you got home, you weren't.
Yeah, now it never leaves you. It's right
exactly.
there.
I feel very sorry for people who are probably being bullied in their younger years now, who go home and the anxiety and stress that must make you feel when you can't escape it must be horrible. And it was the same in your example of Caroline Flack. The power of social media to do good, but also to be a huge stress on people's lives must be pretty horrific, I think.
Yeah, I mean, used in the right way, social media, when it's social media, but at the moment it's used in a lot of cases as antisocial. Let's get a couple of Dave Sleet. He's another great man that understands a lot about mental health. That's why APA. This is something that Dave's created the point of need response, #115. So people receive direct support from qualified therapeutic professionals when they need the support. And that's another good initiative. And I think this is Dr. Asa again. And if it's not Dr. Asa, please feel free to correct me. Personally, I firmly believe that everyone's affected by mental health issues to some degree. It's about accepting our humanity and our vulnerability. Well, I think we're a weird bunch, human beings. We're kind of resilient and vulnerable at the same time. And I can't quite get my head around that sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that point was totally right. Everyone experiences it differently and to different degrees of severity. And, and that's why it's so complicated to treat as well, isn't it? Or,
but I think in accepting it, that's a good thing. To go back to this comment, if we just accept that we have mental health issues, or have the potential for mental health, we have the potential for mental health, and we have the potential for not mental health. And the fact that we're aware that we have this potential, we're both the question what can be done about it. And what I've noticed with a lot more people, and I don't want to sound like a patronizing fool, but more people of your age rather than mine, when I was growing up, it was almost the genetic determinism argument, in the sense where people would say, I've got cancer in my family, so I'll probably get it. And then there's been a whole new science since then called epigenetics, which shows it's an awful lot more about the environment that you're in than the genes you were born with. Yes, they play a part, but nowhere near the percentage that people thought. Much, much, much smaller. So there's that. And I've noticed a lot of younger people talk about their mental health an awful lot more as if it's something they have at least some choice or volition in, rather than just the crapshoot, the luck of the draw. My mum had it and so will I. Idea, which is not a healthy idea in my opinion.
Yeah, it can be a pretty anxiety-inducing world out there at the moment, and it is hard to not be anxious about, things like the economy. Climate anxiety is a big problem for young people, I'm sure, as well. And yeah, just
Sorry, what anxiety? I missed that.
Climate anxiety, eco anxiety about,
Yeah.
if you're 16 years old and you're reading the news every day about the bleak outlooks for the climate,
And of course, all the outlets would be painting the apocalyptic picture when a balanced view. It's always what I notice with the media. It's kind of, it's terrible, be frightened, but they don't say it's terrible, be frightened, and here's something positive.
Yeah, here's some. Yeah, absolutely.
They're problem focused, not solution focused, because cuddly stories don't get on the front page.
Yeah, exactly,
it's an awful saying that's been used in newsrooms for years. If it bleeds, it leads, and I hate that saying, but it's kind of true. So what's coming up for you in your conscious street food enterprise?
We are.
What's the plan for world domination here?
So we've got a single food truck at the moment, where we're catering at weddings, festivals, street food markets, and for lots of corporate clients. So we've got a full program of summer events lined up. We're doing quite a few festivals. We're doing one in London called Happy Place, which is Fern Cotton's Wellbeing Festival. So we'll be at Chiswick House Gardens.
Yes,
really good fun.
Very into that whole wellbeing thing, Fern Cotton.
Yeah. It's a great festival, and it's about togetherness, well-being, and we have a good time with that every year. And as I say, we'll be out and about. We do lots of sort of village fetes, cider festivals, beer fests, music festivals. So, and all of that feeds into our 50% pledge to use our profits to support number 5 young people who provide the counselling services on our behalf. So
that is absolutely amazing. And what kind of counselling services are they? Is it all CBT, or are there other?
Yeah, so they do one-to-one sessions, online therapy, but also group sessions and sort of more creative sessions such as dance and arts and crafts, just bringing young people together who are suffering. But and it's free. It's completely free, and they help hundreds and hundreds of young people a month. And thanks to our customers, since we started the business, we've been able to use £25,000 of our profit to fund counselling sessions on our customers' behalf. So without our customers, none of this is possible.
Isn't that fantastic? Just talking to the people listening, isn't that amazing? I suppose that's why you call it conscious street food.
Exactly, and it's social enterprise.
It's conscience, isn't it?
And I think it's an advert for why there should be more social enterprise businesses out there, because it shows that we can achieve a dual aim of being a successful business and employing people and paying our taxes and giving back to the economy, but also whilst funneling a portion of our profits to support social aim. There's other great examples.
Imagine if all businesses were run that way. What a different business environment we'd have.
Yeah, there's another great example is one called Change Please Coffee, who are quite a large coffee company now, and they're training taking people from disadvantaged backgrounds and homelessness and giving them careers in the coffee industry, which is really good. So I think over the next few years, we should see a bit more of an influx in social enterprise businesses in the day-to-day sort of sphere that we all recognise, and hopefully in the shops, in the supermarkets, that sort of thing.
Where do you source your menus from? Because the food was absolutely delicious. Where do you get your menu ideas from?
Oh, so it's a bit of a hodgepodge of what I think Lewis and I we say it's what we like to eat. So and we also assess the gaps in the market, and just see what isn't out there. And also my mum grew up in the Middle East, so we've got that infused into our menus as well. So but it's also about having a USP and giving something that's not else what you can't find on the market, which is hopefully what our menu delivers.
Oh, it was lovely, and I like the way it was presented as well. It was in a basket, wasn't it? It was just
that's right.
Very, very typical kind of street food, but really, really delicious. Liz says, "Isn't that interesting? I'd be reassured." This is when I said my therapist had therapy, that a practitioner had used some of the services I was also using, because it would show the services are effective. Yeah, good point, Liz. And Dave Sleet says, "Mental health exists on an ever-moving scale, with the impact shaped by knowledge, understanding, and experience. Boosting those three elements enhances the response to the pressure points."
Couldn't have said it better myself. I definitely couldn't have said it better myself.
He's pretty good, Dave. He's pretty good. So big plans for. It sounds like you've got loads of work on. What's the big plans for the future?
We would like to. Essentially, we want to launch another food truck next year, and hopefully, we're going to do it in a sort of social way, where we're hopefully going to train give some work experience to young people coming out of care. And hopefully we're going to train the next generation of food truck managers and maybe food business owners in the future to hopefully have a fleet of food trucks who are sort of operated by people who are gaining experience in learning how to run a business and who maybe want to go on to run their own business in the future. So that's the grand plan for the future.
Because
But
again, these skills aren't taught at school, but to give, I mean, and you mentioned self-esteem earlier, and if you feel you've got a purpose and you feel there's a good reason for you getting out of bed every morning, that does help your mental
totally,
health.
and we go to some great, and
No question about it.
running a food truck is great for, we go somewhere different every day. We meet someone new
Yeah.
every day. We see people having fun at events and things like that. It's a really
Mm.
nice environment to work in. Very hard, obviously. We're working a lot of hours, but it's the nature of the beast. And
I appreciate you putting the hours. Certainly, that charity event where I met you raised 16 grand, by the way.
Oh, brilliant! We're really, really glad. I mean, that was a charity. They're all about the mental health. And again, it comes down to caring for the carers of people with young people with disabilities. The parents go through a lot too and need support and need that social outlet for their.
Yes, there was a you were outside in the truck, but there was a speech done by one of the mums there who's been helped by the charity, and you could have heard it. It was a rowdy, fun but rowdy room, and you could have heard a pin drop.
Really,
and I think you could have heard a pin drop, and it just brought home to me the magnitude of some of these challenges. And it's not just about the person suffering; it's about the person caring for the person suffering as well.
absolutely.
And the magnitude of these challenges is just absolutely incredible. So, every respect to you. What fantastic work you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything that
Really
you're doing.
good to chat to you.
Yeah, I'd love to keep in touch if we
Sure.
could. When you launch your next truck, let me know and we'll get you on here so you can give it a plug.
Wicked, that'd be
And
great.
if anyone would like to sample this delicious conscious street food, at least a couscous conscious street
Yeah,
food,
we sometimes do couscous.
it could be www.eatthink, clever play on your name there, I like that, talk.com.
Yeah,
Eat,
and all our calendar of events is on the website now, and Instagram is at Eat Think Talk as well. So
brilliant.
you'll be able to find us on there.
Well, I very much hope our paths cross again. I've got your card, and I will certainly recommend you if I know anyone that needs. And because I DJ for a living, so it's quite possible I will come across people that need.
Awesome, yeah, that'd be brilliant.
That need food and catering. And please, lovely to meet you. I know
really
our
nice to
listeners
meet you too.
have enjoyed you being on. I can tell that by the comments and the numbers. So thank you for being on, James.
Fabulous, great to speak to you guys. Have a great afternoon. Bye bye.
Likewise. Take care, my friend. Bye bye. What do you think of that, then? What do you think of that? Comments, please. We can just chat between ourselves for the next half an hour or so. What would you like to talk about today? Any comments? Any thoughts? I was on a fantastic call last night, and I might get a bit woo-woo here, but I'm gonna take that risk because I'm a bit out the closet. I do study some woo-woo stuff. Nothing particularly weird. You won't find me communing with angels at the bottom of my garden unless I've had a particular lot to drink that night. But appreciation is, according to my wonderful teacher, who I want to get on this show sometime, is the portal, and it's a proper word, the portal for everything that we want. Everything that we want. Why? Because it changes our energetic frequency. And that might sound a bit out there, but if you think about it, we've all got energy. We can all feel energy, okay? And science has proved that everything, including us, is made of energy. So it makes sense that we want that energy to be good. And my teacher raised a very poignant point last night. He said, how many of you wash every day? And we went, well, yes. How many of you brush your teeth every day? I said, well, yes, we all did. And how many of you, he said, do an energetic cleanse every day and keep your energy field healthy? And we all went and looked like sort of sheepish children. But if it's as important as he says it is, and if by managing our energy in a good way, we can be in this state, and by state, I mean the sum total of your thoughts and feelings of appreciation, then there will be more and more things in our life to appreciate, and it becomes a virtuous circle rather than a vicious one. And I think we also underestimate the power of it. Now, I go to these calls and I watch him ask very pointed and leading in a good way But it's normally used in a negative connotation to ask a leading question, but everyone's got an opposite in a good way questions. And I see people look 10 years younger and have breakthroughs, and their whole demeanor or energy, if you like, changes. And it's also amazing how quickly I've seen for some people on this call things turn around, seemingly insoluble problems, with a change of mindset on their behalf and with a change of how they're thinking and feeling. It can happen really fast. And I know it sounds hard to believe, but I've seen it. I saw it happen not 12 hours ago, sitting here in this same chair, staring at this computer screen. I thought, I've got to share it with you folks tomorrow. So your thoughts, appreciation. Gratitude gets talked about an awful lot. Appreciation slightly different, but not different enough for us to worry about in particular. You could argue appreciation feels slightly better than gratitude, because gratitude is generally based on things that are in the past, or it can be, depending if it's framed that way. I'm grateful that didn't happen. I'm grateful that, that's not the best definition, but appreciation is present moment. I could look around now and go, I appreciate that my Christmas decorations are still up because I'm a bit of an eccentric or can't be bothered to take them down. I appreciate my friend who's sitting opposite me, commenting on the show. She's giving us a wave. I can't believe I talked in that baby voice. That was awful. I don't appreciate that. I appreciate my cleaner's been around this morning, so I don't have to do the cleaning because I really don't want to do it. But simple things. It can be what they call micro appreciations. Just what do you appreciate? Think about it in an accounting sense. Depreciation in an accounting term is where something loses its value. Right? But if you appreciate things, they tend to get bigger. But there's another phrase that goes around: unappreciated good turns to shed, which means that if you don't appreciate the good things that are all around you and coming to you, you won't notice them anymore. And they kind of fester, if you like, waiting for you to appreciate them. And the point is, there's always something that can be appreciated right now. You could appreciate the sunrise. You could appreciate the trees out the window. You could appreciate this absolute hunk of rippling testosterone presenting this show. Or laugh, because humor's another great healer as well. Liz says, I sampled food at a charity event in North Surrey recently, and it was delicious and filling as well as healthy. That was the quiz night, wasn't it? The one we're talking about with James. Asa Don Brown, as a clinical psychologist, I firmly believe we can live a life filled with peace. Not necessarily giddiness or exuberance, although not necessarily not either, but of gratitude, self-awareness and self-love. It's a continuous process that takes work, dedication and desire. Dr. Asa Don Brown, because you've seen it as well. I don't know, is it where the psychological and spiritual meet? Because I don't think they're separate. And I think any kind of spiritual ideas or belief in any ideology should support mental health. That's why I can be a bit leery with religion sometimes, because, put bluntly, sometimes it doesn't. If there's judgment implied, either here or in some afterlife, it's not the happiest way to live your life if you feel you're constantly being judged by something or someone. And if you're not, and if we're not being judged, it's a bit of a waste of a life acting as if we have been. Human beings judge whether the universe does or not. I don't think so. I think the universe is just what it is. But that's my opinion. But my point is, anything that we believe in has to undergird rather than undermine mental health. Otherwise, what's the point of it? Why would we practice that? Liz, acceptance is good. It's simple too. There's a lot of things to deal with in life. There is work, taxes, our hobbies, lol, I've managed to start meditating again in the last year. And in the last couple of months, I felt a calmness that things are coming together. I'm content in my close circle of friends and worldwide family. Now, this person we're talking about has a massive worldwide family. She'll never be short for a trip somewhere in the world. Trust me. Trust me, they're everywhere in the best way. And I mean that in the best way. And also, I'm going to, this friend who's commenting is actually in the room, and I'm going to ask if there's a correlation here, maybe hint at a possible causal link. They say correlation isn't causation, but maybe it is on this one. Do you, Liz, asking you, see a correlation between you feeling calm and things coming together? In other words, is the calmness part of that process on semi-causing it? because you turn around the other way. If you're all scattered and like all over the place, I don't see many people go, everything's chaotic and really coming together. You don't often see that. It would certainly seem to correlate more with calm. Do you not think? Dave Sleek says, having the awareness builds the resilience, which creates the empowerment. Wow. There we go. Having the awareness builds the resilience, which creates the empowerment. Yeah, because if you know that you can handle anything, then there's nothing to worry about. As long as you know that it is perfectly within your skill set to handle. I think it's when things happen that people think, oh my God, I can't handle this. Then people go off the rails a bit. Yes, says Liz, partly. Most things are already there, and being clam helps with clarity. So being a sea creature clearly helps with clarity in some sort. Oh, sorry, calm. Yeah, she just clams up and then everything's absolutely clear. I tease, of course. Yes, most things are already there. And that's the point, because Liz is appreciating what's already there. And with that focus, that energy signature, if you will, of appreciation, that will naturally attract more. Science has got onto this as well. They call it the reticular activating system, or if you want to be cheeky about it, your RAS. I'll pop it on the screen. And it's a group of cells that they've discovered in the brain. And neuroscience is fascinating, by the way. Asa Dawn Brown, I appreciate your thoughts on this. I'm just going to write it. I do all my own notes. And because I'm a man, I can't concentrate and type and talk at the same time. Man brain. And do you know, by the way, why that is? Why men can only do one thing at a time? Do you know why? Would you like this? Would you like the science behind this? Because it probably drives women absolutely crazy. But the bit that connects our left brains and right brains, it's called the corpus callosum, and it's much thinner in men than it is in women. So that can explain why women can have a whole picture of something and have more of a holistic view. It also explains why there can be 5 conversations with women talking very, very fast, and they can all follow what each other are saying. And yet one woman talking at that speed to a man would confuse him. And it can do. It's just a difference. Men have less access to get between those two parts of the brain physically than women do. So that's what's going on there. Let me just take James's off, and I'm going to pop this banner on, and that's what we're talking about, RAS, reticular activating system. And it's a group of cells that, amongst other things, because all of our systems in the bodies have multiple functions. I mean, our liver does 15,000 things every day. 15,000. Number one, getting Neil better from the night before. Only another 14,999 to do. Thank you, liver. Anyway, I don't do it often, by the way. I'm just joking, really. But one of the things the RAS, or reticular activation system, done is look for patterns. So, practical example, have you ever bought a car and then seen that car on the street everywhere? Suddenly everyone's got one. Or girls, have you ever bought a dress and suddenly seen everyone is now following your sartorial trend and looking at a similar dress? Were they there already? Probably. Did you notice them? No, because you weren't choosing to focus. So you will see more of what you focus on. Okay. And by correlation, you will get more of what you focus on. So if we want more good stuff, wouldn't it make sense to focus on the good and what we appreciate? Because number one, it feels a lot better, and the journey to whatever we're working towards will feel a lot easier and a lot more joyful and a lot more easy and a lot more flowy if we're in appreciation. That's the first point. And number two, it will make it come about an awful lot quicker, because we're not, I suppose, contradicting it with fears and worries and all the things that are not appreciation based. Does that make sense? Comments, please. Please do comment. Maybe I'm getting a bit out there, but I think we're ready to have this conversation. I really think we are, and it does undergird mental health. It really, really does. So, what's your thoughts? Comments, please. Dr. Asa, anything you'd like to throw in? Come, we've got plenty of people listening. Chuck in a comment. So the guy on the call I was on last night, he's given us all homework, which is really to appreciate and note and see if we notice the difference, because I could sit here and tell you this till the cows come home, but until you actually do it, and there's a difference between just making mental lists and actually embodying the feeling of appreciation. It's all about the embodiment. It's grounding it. It's bringing it from the head down into the body. A lot of us are like very much up in the mind all the time. And that's where the kind of ego part of us, and that's where the fears and the worries and the resentments and all that kind of human, I suppose, stuff resides. But if we're putting that back in its context and are more in our bodies, it's not that we try and eliminate that. We just put it back in its proper place. But as the one running the show is probably not the proper place for a healthy ego that just wants to run the show and force and dominate. I mean, look at the world stage. If you look at ego played out on the world stage, it becomes very stark and apparent to see, doesn't it? Your thoughts, please. What do you appreciate? Put that on the timeline. Something that you can get a real felt sense of appreciation for.
Let's not do Friday.
What do you think? Or we can just sit here in silence. It's the new way forward in radio. Force people to get involved just by sitting there in silence. No, I'm teasing. Got another comment coming. Let's have a look at that. Ooh. When we can acknowledge and accept our capacity in every given situation, we can apologize to ourselves for not being in the state we would hope to be, which causes an imbalance. I'm going to break that down a little bit. When we can acknowledge and accept our capacity in every given situation. So you mean we need to apologize to ourselves, Dave, for not being in the state No, because there's no point in judging yourself. That's the point. Judging yourself kind of will take you out of that state you want to be in really, really fast. So that would cause an imbalance if that's what you mean. Maybe you could give us a little more meat on the bone on that one, Dave, what you mean by that. All of this involves around self-acceptance, even if it's a part of yourself that you want to change. Because if you just keep butting up against it, it's gonna keep knocking louder. It's just, how can I put it? Uncomfortable feelings that come up. It's to draw our attention to something, and once the message is received, we can let it go. We don't have to hold on to it and be part of it forever. It's just a question of acknowledging when it comes up and thinking, actually, is this relevant for now? Does this actually still serve me? And process it and move it on. The messenger is delivered, but we kind of crush down the message and think, no, I'm going to go back up into my head, my ego mind. I'm going to force, not listen to my messages. And well, look how that's worked. Look how many people are burning out. Look how many people are suffering from mental health issues. So I would wager, is that really the wisest way to be dealing with it? I think it's not. This is from Dr. Asa Don Brown. Oh, I like this. We've got some nice big sciencey words here. The biology and neurology, he says. As far as the neurology of the self, it's a complicated organ made up of neurons and glial cells. Or is that glial? I think it's glial. Or I'm not sure. I'll say glial for convenience. The neuron is responsible for sending and receiving nerve impulses or signals. Glial cells are non-neuronal cells that support nutrition, maintain homeostasis, form myelin, and facilitate signal transmission to the nervous system. And human brain glial cells outnumber neurons by about 50-1. Yes, the version I heard, I read it in a Paul McKenna book, Dr. Asa, and it's very similar to you. Glial cells are like transmission masts. Because they can transmit anything, so it makes the amount of possibilities, shall we say, of thoughts that we can think and run through our brains and minds probably more than there are stars in the known universe. Because it's like if that glial cell can broadcast 50 things, multiply that one next door that can do 50, and then put them together, then it's algorithmic. So you've got 50 times 50 times 50 times 50 times 50 up to a whole brain network when there's 50 times more of these glial cells than neurons. So the possibilities are pretty big. And when you consider it that way, just let that one sink in for a minute. There are more thoughts that we could potentially think than there are stars in the known universe. Does that blow anyone's mind? It kind of makes this normal Wednesday afternoon a little less mundane, doesn't it? Is it just a normal Wednesday afternoon, or are we all living, breathing miracles and we don't really realize it because we all play small? I don't know. Simply put, we're a combination of neurological, biological, and the human experience. Dr. Asa Don Brown. Dave says exactly. But it's interesting stuff. So would it be worth trying if I were to give you homework? Not that it's my job to do that. It's my job just to present the show. But for an experiment, would anyone be up for that experiment here? A deliberate, embodied practice of appreciation for the next week. And we'll talk about it next Wednesday on the show and see if you feel different. Normally, it's the feelings that change first. And then, like the physical kind of follows up, the feelings have to change first. But anyone up for an experiment like that? Anyone fancy it? We can even talk on Facebook. We can even send each other lists in the morning. I don't mind interacting with you. I promise I won't text you with weird texts at 3 a.m. Anyone up for that? Be interested? Dave says, when we can't acknowledge and accept our capacity, right, here we go. We tend to punish ourselves for not being able to resolve the situation. And that's exactly what I was alluding to earlier, and also alluded to very strongly on the Progressive Masculinity show with Mike Nicholson. Right, and it's even if we feel bad and we can't get up, we then weaponize that against ourselves. Oh, well, you're not resilient. That critical inner voice, that troll, that inner troll that we've all got, and we've all got it, but that lives in the ego part of us. But if the ego's been put back into proper context, as it's not running the show, just a part of us and a necessary part. We couldn't experience the world without the ego, but it's just got a bit. It's been put on a pedestal it doesn't deserve, and it's not very good at running the show, as we've all experienced in our personal lives and on the world stage. It's fairly obvious. And then if it's going to weaponize the fact that we can't get up straight away, it's just adds another layer of shit for us to break through. We don't need it. It creates self-blame, which further reduces the capacity to acknowledge and accept ourselves. Exactly, Dave. So if you're going, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm shit at this, I'm not very good at that, oh, I failed there, that's not a particularly joyful narrative to be carrying through life, and it does stop you accepting yourself, and acceptance is absolutely key to this, and the psychological gremlins keep going. I've used appreciation in my work and use it in my daily life. I'd be intrigued with your experiment. This is Dr. Asa, I take it. I'd be intrigued with your experiment. Again, it's about living beyond our successes and failures, and it's about life on a continuum. Yeah, it is. Because we're more, who was it? The actress Priyanka Chopra. She's quoted in the new Paul McKenna book, which we've talked about on this show, and I've thoroughly recommended this one, Success for Life. And with NLP, you model people that do what you want to do successfully, and you learn how they're doing it rather than trying to fix the problem that you can't, if you know what I mean. It's a different approach. So in other words, it's focusing and enhancing what's right rather than trying to battle and fight against and not accept, Dave, what's wrong, if you know what I mean. So yeah, this all ties in, doesn't it? I don't think any of us are in disagreement with each other. And if we were, it's fine, but I don't think we are. And she says, I'm the sum of my successes. We're more than our experiences. And if we frame it that we're the sum of our successes rather than successes and failures, but it's part of being human. I don't think it's possible to be human on planet Earth and have never made a mistake. And I think Einstein said, you show me someone that's never made a mistake, I'll show you someone that hasn't grown at all. So there is that as well. So I'm not saying we should go around looking to make as many dumb mistakes so we can grow for them. But when they do, maybe we need to be a little less hard on ourselves and have systems in place that wouldn't encourage that harshness, that would encourage maybe an opportunity for growth. And maybe it would only need leaping on, like the media will want to do, when there was an immediate danger to that person or someone else, in which case that's fair enough. Then we would hope they would get the treatment they needed. That sounds to me a much more fair and more compassionate society. Personally, I mean, your thoughts. What do you think? And of course, Dr. Asa, do you agree that what you appreciate appreciates? Because you will know this, you certainly don't need Mr. Layperson over here to tell you the profession of this, but obviously what you put your attention on increases. So if you're appreciating things, what you appreciate appreciates, the opposite of the accountancy term depreciation. So yeah, lots of good stuff. But what do you think? What's your thoughts? We've got 5 more minutes. I'll take some more comments. Then I'll let you know what's coming up on the show on Friday. But I think you already probably know, but I will give that a plug anyway. And then I'm going to get on with making my demo, which I've been doing. Making a multimedia demo, which you have to do nowadays. Which I'm going to be working on this afternoon and hopefully seeing my daughter too. Mistakes are learning lessons and instruments to improve our life. Right. We shouldn't live in the past thinking on our successes and failures. It's about focusing on the moment that we're in. Yeah, my teacher says, don't bring the past forward with you. Take the positive learnings from it. Take what you can learn and then move the hell on. Otherwise, you're constantly living in the past, and that's where guilt lives. Or you're fearing the future, which is where anxiety lives. And this is what mindfulness teaches. We only have the present moment. This is what Asa is saying. Just going to turn my computer on. Hold on. I get in. I mean, obviously it's on. Otherwise, you couldn't be listening to me. It's magic. It's about focusing on the moment that we're in. Yeah, and that's what mindfulness teaches us. Because in this present moment, I'm just focused on talking to you guys, and not much else. And I'm enjoying the interaction. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to James earlier on. It's nice to be in this collective of people. We can have open conversations like this. There's some appreciation. It's nice to interact with you. It's nice to kind of invite you lot into my home, as it were, every Wednesday with the Christmas decorations still up. It's a nice thing, and we can talk like adults, and we can talk openly, and we can talk about important things like mental health, and that is important. It really is, and all of that's nice. And did you know that when you watch something in group, be it this or be it the X Factor on Saturday night, just the awareness that there's a lot of people watching at once boosts serotonin, which is another well-being hormone in the brain. So the power of a group dynamic and the fact that we can meet like this and have talks in this kind of environment, I think it's a good thing. I really do. And obviously you do too, otherwise you wouldn't be tuned in. And great comment as well from Asa, Dr. Asa, who's always got wise words to say, as has Dave Sleep. And it's always really good, and I appreciate hearing your comments. Yeah, mistakes are learning lessons and instruments to improve our life. So I don't know anyone in this world that's never made a mistake. And normally the more arrogant and know-it-all people are, they're generally trying to cover up more than anything else, where most people will just say, well, yeah, I'm human. I will make mistakes. I don't have all the information. How many times is that? We're all expected to have all the information to handle any situation that comes up immediately, perfectly for everyone involved. And now, by the way, right now in this moment, that's a big ask of anybody. And we wonder why we're experiencing stress. When you think about it that way, it's kind of bleeding obvious, isn't it? Anyway, stuff you'd like to talk about on these Wednesdays. If you'd like me to do a deep dive into a particular subject or get a guest on, reading a fascinating book at the moment, which I will show you on Kindle. There we go. I will just show it to you. It's by someone, Dr. Emily Morse. It's called Smart Sex. I don't know if you can see that. And that's really interesting. And if I could summarize that book up in 3 words, pleasure is productive. So that's another kick in the teeth for the nose to the grindstone. And it's not a rude book. It's an educational book. Okay, I'm not promoting porn sites. That's in the afternoon show on a different channel. That was a joke. Friday, Russ Kane is going to be here with Phil Dave, the regular Friday crew, and the Screen Queen, Chantal Ricards as well, who is a lovely lady, and she always has recommendations of fantastic things to watch. And there's some really, really good TV on at the moment. I'm just going to put this one up. The best practitioners are those that accept their humanity and their personal vulnerabilities. And that's exactly what my therapist was like. And if I ever do any kind of work like that with people, which I do occasionally on a sort of layperson basis, that's the way I approach it too. The best gurus are one, which means lack of darkness, by the way, guru, if you translate it. It means enlightened one, no dark guru, or something like that, something close to that. They're the ones that are just one step away. If we see them as these kind of enlightened, semi-alien beings wearing robes on a mountaintop, they're not going to be very approachable. But if we think, yeah, you're just like me, and I can learn from you, and I can achieve what you can achieve relatively easily, I think that's reason for hope for everyone, and brilliant food for thought to finish the show on today. Thank you so much for listening. Appreciate all your comments. Appreciate James Fink. Let's pop him back up on the screen briefly. If you'd like to try this delicious food, conscious street food, eatthinktalk.com. It's been an hour all about mental health, and it's been great to have you tuned in. Thank you so much. Russ, I'll see you Friday, and I'll see you next Monday with Russ, and by myself next Wednesday. Take care. Good afternoon.